And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sasquatch Experience. It's me, Sean the Fork Chop Forker, here tonight with Vance Nesbitt and Henry May, and our two guests tonight, my good friends and fellow research, Dustin Kinley, right above me, and my brother Ray, right to the left of me or right of me, depending. I don't know. I always screw this up every week. Guys, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So we're going to let just a few seconds in because there is a slight delay tonight, folks, as I look into the camera, just a slight delay, but we'll get through it as much as possible because it's a pretty good show tonight. But before we get carried out, got some housekeeping notes. One, I want to send a happy birthday out to my Uncle Zen, one of our research partners, my Uncle Zen. It's not every day you get to be born and have a built-in best friend like an uncle like I do, but Uncle Zen's a pretty cool guy, and just sending a happy birthday out to him. And a personal note, just send our condolences to the family of Ron Andrasco. Ron was a fellow researcher of Ray and Dustin's of eyes here in Pennsylvania. Ron passed away, and we're going to miss him. He's a good guy, very analytical, wrote some really good reports. I think sometimes got a little pissed at me because we weren't always, I think, as organized as Ron would have liked with his military background, but he was a good dude and we're going to miss him. So again, our hearts go out to Ron's family, his wife, Tina, and he's always going to have a part in my heart and with us in the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, Keystone Bigfoot Project. Just an all around good dude. Vance, this past week, we had that great show last week with Julie returning with us. You are a part 2. And we played some really good vocals. But what was interesting is those vocals spurred a listener to send some information to us. So we got a sound file I want to play for you guys. And hopefully it works the first time this week. I want to play this for you. And I'll give a little background here. The email goes, "Hello, while listening to your show, your guest Julie Wrench had an audio that you played that was titled 20114. It was at the 26-minute and 50-second mark on the show. It's remarkable to me the similarities from the audio that has been recorded at a remote cabin that I have here in Alaska. By the way, our listeners' audio was also analyzed by David Ellis, and it was sent back to him about 2 weeks ago. And he says it's just uncanny to me and how similar they are, at least into the untrained ear. He's not a believer in the subject until he sees one. Sorry, a little eye itch there. Until then, he's going to consider himself an agnostic, which I completely appreciate. He's not a nutcase, which he likes to point out. Folks, we don't think you are unless it telepathically speaks to you. And there's been numerous other guys that have gone out to his property, and they've heard and witnessed things out there. But we have the sound right here, and I'm going to play that for us. Vance, while I get that queued up, you listen to it. What were your initial thoughts?
There's a lot of similarities as to what Julie captured. Yeah. And I guess that's the big profound thing that you brought up in the last show with Julie is it seems like these audios are so similar to each other, and yet they're coming from all over the country and all over the world. And if we're not identifying it as a known creature, then what are you left with?
Well, let's play this quick and let me know, Vance, with a thumbs up if anybody can actually hear this. Here it goes, the Alaska vocals from the listener. Nope. All right, let's try that one more time because we love this. I love when this happens, guys. Nothing makes me happier
than live.
Well, every week, Hold on. Go away, Siri. I don't like you. Okay. Is Ray over there laughing at me because he knows how much I love Siri? Okay. Let's try this one more time, shall we? Now you hear it? Now, in indicated in the audio, it was looped several times. So it's interesting. To me, it kind of sounds a little aquatic, but when you add the context to it, it sounds similar to what we had, out there, right? So what you out there. So it was interesting. I want to thank our listener for sending that into us, folks. You can always send your stuff into us, squatchexperience@gmail.com. You could even send it to us on Facebook via the Sasquatch Experience Facebook page. Our good friend and listener Jamie King, It Sounds Underwater. Yeah, I felt the same thing too. And just adding some content, and it could just be how it was processed. I don't know. But of course, as it goes on, we'll keep you all up to date. I just want to again thank our listener for sending that out to us. Pretty interesting, guys, though, huh?
Yeah.
No, it's very reminiscent of a couple glasses of wine and fettuccine, and then go to bed. And I usually hear something like that. So never mind.
Nice. Yes. Fettuccine. Your weak ass system. How about that? Upping that gut up. Don't be such a baby. Anyhow, guys, tonight on the show, again, I have Ray and Dustin with me. Ray and I, and we brought Dustin into this research a little later, but Ray and I had been investigating for about a year together before we started heavily getting into Clearfield County. Clearfield County is an area that had at least over 100 Bigfoot sightings based on the resources I have, which is why we spent a lot of time there. In fact, it was a set of sightings that happened in the January, actually New Year's Day of 2012 that really got Ray and I interested in going to investigate this place. Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society got a report probably about 45 minutes from one another of when the reports actually took place on the same road and what we believe to be the same creature, because in the details of the report, it's your typical road crossing report. They're driving home from a party. They wanted to make it clear to us in the report they weren't over inebriated, and something ran out in front of them and over the guardrail and into the forest on, I think the highway's 322, Ray. Does that sound right?
Yeah, Rockton Mountain.
Yeah, up in Rockton Mountain. And one of the details that they stated and they notated was the white color on the bottom of the foot. And to have two different set of witnesses describe this exact similar feature and a creature the same build was pretty extraordinary. And so we went out there. We've got pictures of that event on one of our Facebook pages out there. And if I can find them, I'll put them on our Sasquatch Experience page, because I used Ray as the stand-in with the witnesses to see how big it looked. Because Ray, how tall are you, Ray?
I'm 6'3".
Yeah, he's tall. And he's a big dude. And so Ray's a pretty good stand-in for a Sasquatch. He's our equivalent of Bobo. And
wow.
So
okay.
Ray, he's a big guy. That's all I'm saying. He's a big dude. So as we're out there, we're going out there. How many times? Probably once or twice a month for the.
Yeah, I'd say at least once a month. Sometimes like once every other week. Just depending on like our work schedules and whatnot. We ended up spending a ton of time out there. Yeah, just because there's so much ground to cover, realistically.
There is. And to say nothing of the time we almost drove under that giant elk in your Volkswagen. It was a scary moment. But anyhow, we spent a lot of time out there. There was a restaurant over the top of the mountain that we'd spend a lot of time at. They would collect Bigfoot sighting reports for us. And we did a couple different speaking engagements out there. In fact, the one time we went out in April is where we met Jamie and Jenny King, some of my favorite Bigfoot researchers out there, for anybody taking note. Good people. And they shared their sighting with us. I invited them to go out with us that night, and they didn't. And it was glad they did. We didn't go out too long that night. Anyhow, fast forward to September of that year. We were going through trying to get together like the best time, going through data, trying to find out when's the best time to really be out here and deploy our resources. when we had the best chance of having an encounter, right? So we looked at data, we looked at time of year these sightings were taking place. We looked at a lot of different scenarios, and we just felt the end of September, by the time we could put the time together, time we could get everybody together, we'd go out and check this weekend out. Well, the weekend consisted of, well, what was of the weekend? Ray, Dustin, Eric Altman from Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, Dave Rupert, and Ryan Cavaline. We all went out the day before and kind of did the setup and did a look around. And it was that night, because they were all going to come back the next day. We were going to do some pretty heavy squatching. And it was that night that we had our collective experience. And I don't know which one you guys want to start, but things were kind of weird from the beginning of that night. When we got there, we had set up the fire and we were sitting around. And Ray, I don't think you saw this, Ray, because your back was to the woods, but Dustin and I were sitting in the fire, kind of looking at the woods. And I'm going to pull a picture of the meadow out so everybody can see this. See if I can throw it up there. And what I'm talking about here is, you see the tree right in the center. Well, if you go up, you can see like a definitive tree line there. We were probably 10 feet in from the tree line, if that.
About that, yeah.
Yeah.
We had our fire set up, and then down next to that small little cropping of trees is where we had our tent set up. Not to the big cropping, it was the smaller one, because I think near the big one's where that pipe's at, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tucked right back along that, like on the, I think, northwest side of it.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to camp next to that pipe, the risk of exploding something or who the hell knows what's going on. But somebody could be buried under there, and it could be a breathing tunnel. We don't know. But Dustin, why don't you tell them the first unique thing about this when we even tried to camp in this area?
Oh, when we went to get a permit, because most parks require a permit to camp anymore in Pennsylvania. When we went to apply for it, they had no clue that the clearing was even there.
Yeah.
And when we said, can we get a permit for this clearing? The lady's like, there's no clearing out there. And they gave us a permit anyhow, but it was just one of the strangest things that
they didn't even know it themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so we put the permit on the windshield of my van, and we went down, and it's about a mile and a half, maybe 2 to that area from the road.
I want to say, like, in terms of driving, I want to say it's a good probably mile and a half, and then it's probably another good quarter mile of walking from, maybe a half mile of walking from where you park the cars.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's quite the distance to get in and out of pretty quickly. I think it's a little further than that to get into the actual meadow itself, but we'd actually have to physically go and walk it and map it out. But what's unique about this area is it's an area that we were taken to a couple times before this, and we have had some vocalizations there in the past, which is why we chose this area. But anyhow, as we're setting up and we have the fire going on, probably after 9, because there was still maybe just barely light out there, right? Barely some light, and there was light coming off the fire, and something ran through behind Ray, past Ray, into the tree line. Like somehow it must have crossed through the meadow behind us, behind Ray, and into the tree line. And I just happened to look over at Dustin's looking right into the woods, and I just had that look like, did I just see what I think I saw? So Dustin and I really don't say anything to each other. We get up and we run over to the tree line, looking to what's going on, and the only thing you can hear is something running through the woods. And I'm like, okay, what the hell was that? We had no idea. Dustin, you remember that moment?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you just looked over with that look like, did you see that too?
Yeah. And what
I'm like, yeah.
Was kind of a larger, lighter colored animal run through our campsite. Like it ran. So, all right, we're sitting there, and Eric and them had left at this point. Dave and Ryan had set up a game camera a couple game cameras in the area, and they had left for the night. And we're figuring, well, we're going to stay here. It's a very quiet night. Nothing's really going on. And then that happens. So we're up, and I think we're up till about 11 or 12 because we wanted to go to bed a little earlier because we were going to get up early in the morning. We're going to get up at like 4 o'clock, maybe a little earlier to see what we could see anything going on or get any sounds or whatnot. And well, 11 o'clock, we go in, we put the fire out. We were very sure about that because we didn't want to burn ourselves up in that meadow.
We moved the logs off the fire.
That's important to note because that's really important to note. A question from Jamie King goes, is that where we found the hair samples? Jamie, that's exactly where those hair samples were found. And that was, I think, the summer or two before we did our investigation. We did our, outing that weekend.
And when we were setting up that day too, we also noted fresh twists on trees. There's saplings on the kind of like in between where we were set up, and there's kind of a ridge that goes along, almost like a one of the trail systems that they use to kind of monitor the park. But then there's saplings in between us, and I'd say 5 or 6 saplings were literally not broken, but they were twisted and bent down. So it's not something that you would regularly see in terms of like weather damage or something like that, or a bear or something like that marking its territory, pushing it over, mauling it, that kind of thing. But it was literally looked like somebody took it, wrenched it with their hands, and then bent it down.
Yeah, it's interesting to notice that there's, in that particular area for us, there's always, it seems to be an absence of bear sign out that way. I've not seen any bear scat out there. In the times we've been out there, I'm not saying there hasn't. I'm just saying it's just another interesting thing to note about.
Can I interject something real quick?
Yeah.
Just for all the listeners that are not familiar with what you're showing in the meadow, where is this located?
It's located in Clearfield County, Pennsylvania. We're not going to give its exact location out because we still go and research that area. Because it's been a good area. And where were we at? We just get ready to go into tent for the night, right? So, Ray, I'm glad you kind of bring up that ridge because that's important too. Pull off the fire, pull the log, put out the fire, put the logs off, go in and lay down. And we're in there, maybe about an hour?
Give or take, yeah.
And I think Ray, you might be asleep at this point. I don't know. Ray's kind of,
I'm a sound sleeper.
Yeah, Ray was zonked out of it.
I feel bad, but I'm not making fun of Ray. He sleeps well. That's all. And we're laying there, and I hear something kind of like a hum sound in the meadow. Okay, and there's no sound in there, so it echoes pretty well. And I see a light come on in the sleeping bag next to me, and that's Dustin as he turns his phone on. By the way, very little to no cell phone reception in this area, except in the center of the meadow. Almost dead center, you can get a couple bars of service. And we're lying.
And that's not helpful.
No, and it's because it's just the three of us out here now in the middle of the night. It's dark. You hear and then you hear something walking around our camping area, right? Well, it's starting to get a little closer to the tent, and it's definitely bipedal in its locomotion. Like it's not a deer, very heavy-footed. And I roll over to Dustin, and I'm like, hey, you hearing this? And Dustin's like, yeah, man, I hear it. And Ray, we didn't wake you up for some reason. And in hindsight, we should have woke Ray up because he's the biggest one of the bunch. Dustin and I are like the size of
Ray out.
Okay. And
yeah, right. He's the sacrifice. Let him sleep. He's our sacrifice.
Could have been the only one to save us. Go ahead, Ray. You were going to say something. I'm sorry.
What ended up waking me up was actually like you guys opening up the door. And then like light came in. I was like, what the hell's that light?
So Dustin and I are lying there just listening to this thing walk around, and then we don't hear it for a couple minutes. And then we see this glow on the outside of the tent. And Dustin's like, what the hell is going on out there? So Dustin, he's kind of fearless. I'm pretty full. So Dustin gets up and he opens the tent zipper and our fire's going again. Okay. The logs have been moved back onto the fire and the fire is going again. And I'm like, well, what the hell's going on? Because then I thought somebody was screwing with us. Okay.
Yeah, we moved the logs a good 5 feet from the fire pit. So it was no way they were just going to roll back on and, stack themselves back to how it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's when, you have to pardon the phrase, shit got real. So Dustin gets out and puts his boots on. He says, and he hears something. He goes, Forker, throw me my gun. Okay, well, I'm an idiot. So I literally throw him his gun. I did. I chucked that shit at him. And then I got a talking to from Dustin later about not actually throwing firearms. But I
it's okay.
go to get out, and he goes, Forker, look. And off to the right of us, and I'll pull this, the tent is facing that wood line that we're talking about. Off to the right, and you go up, you can't really see it, and I can't move it. If you go to the right of those trees and up, there's like a little ledge, like a ridge, as Ray called it. Well, something, it was the same color of the same thing that ran through our campsite earlier in the night, ran up the little hillside onto that ridge, and you can hear it run around the perimeter of this meadow. So Ray's coming out.
I'm just like, what the shit? Because I saw something go up the ridge too.
Mm-hmm. And I couldn't tell you where Ray was in respect to me at that point, because the only thing I know is I'm out of the tent looking at this thing and kind of looking all around like, what is going on here? So I yell at this thing a few times. Hey, listen, if you're somebody out here messing with us, identify yourself, or we're going to put some holes in you. Like, you're really, you shouldn't be doing this. This isn't cool. It's really upsetting. Knock it off. Like, really identify yourself. No harm, no foul. We'll all go our own ways. It'll be fine. Well, it doesn't stop. So I get on the phone and I call, and I'm getting the goosebumps again, guys. I'm sorry, because it was traumatic for us. We go to the center of the meadow, back to back, all three of us, like a triangle, keeping an eye on what's going on all around us. And I call Dave Rupert's wife. And looks like we lost Henry there. But I called Dave Rupert's wife, Carrie, and I said, Carrie, is Dave home? Because Dave doesn't live too far away. And she goes, no, he's not home yet. Is something wrong? And I'm telling her what's going on. She's like, well, if you guys want to get out of there and you want to come out and stay with us, go ahead, because they don't live too far away. Far enough, but not too far away. So she goes, let me try to see if I can get Dave, because I can get Dave to come in and get you guys out of there, because I didn't want to be there anymore. After this first experience, I was ready to go. Dustin, Ray, I don't know about you guys or how you felt, but at that point, I was ready to go.
I was at that point, like, I think I was at work all that day. And so I was really just like, if whatever it is, we've scared it off. Like, I was there for hunkering back down because I really wanted to do stuff in the morning. Mm-hmm. At that point, that's where my mind was at, I'm like, it's interesting. It's probably just somebody screwing with us. Cause there was cars in the lot when everybody was leaving. So I was like, maybe one of the people from the group is just staying back to screw with us. No big deal. But that's like my mindset where I was at. I was a little freaked out, but realistically, I'm like, I try to rationalize things and look at things logically. And I'm like, yeah, this is just somebody screwing with us. I'm just going to go back to bed.
How long did it take you to change your mind?
It was probably somebody pestering me in the middle of the night that changed my mind.
I don't know who that was.
I think I'm about the same with Ray. I was more interested in seeing what was happening next.
I'm glad to know that the experienced one of the group was the wuss. Thank you, guys. That makes me I was one that was like, let's get the hell out of here. Kevin asks, why leave? You're researchers. Well, Kevin, yeah, we're researchers, but I also like to research alive.
Right? And
at that point, I had a lot of fear and wasn't feeling like making myself out to be, something's dinner or beating bag. I took it pretty pretty hard. I think harder than Ray and Dustin took it. Because you got to remember, I've been doing this almost, researching it my whole life. And the fear I had was definitely measurable. It was jarring for me.
Yeah, I can imagine if I were in that situation, I would probably feel the same way. I can respect that.
Well, the thing is, we had gear with us, right? But at no point did any of us make any attempt to get it. And I think maybe, at least from my perspective, and I'll let Ray and Dustin chime in on this, we're just trying to put it all together. What's going on. We've read about this. We've watched, the documentaries. We've seen all this. None of us are new to research, but to experience it in this dramatic of a fashion, there was something else to it. And to put it all together and try to rationalize it in the moment just wasn't happening very well.
I say another interesting thing to note, Sean, you'll remember this. We threw chemolites into that ridge, and they got moved around.
Yeah, I think at one point we literally saw one get picked up and moved. Yeah, it was neon green. Yep. One of the glow sticks is what people call them. They're a little bit higher, I guess, grade that you brought along with us than the ones you get at the dollar store. But that was pretty. That was in itself was interesting. So we get Dave and Ryan. They come back in, and I think Ryan. We'll ask him next week or in 2 weeks. Vance, if he's got the footage where he's got his camera coming down because he's a movie maker, right? Mm-hmm. And he's got our reactions on film. And he was out filming earlier in the day. I'm not trying to say they did this to get the reactions out of anybody. They're not those people. And they eventually got us to calm down enough we'll stay the night, right? Yep, we're going to stay the night. They stayed out with us for about an hour. And then they left. And then after they left, and we're all settled in, everything's calmed down, it comes back. Tracing around the campsite. You can hear it on the outside of the campsite. And that, as I think was when it hit with me. The gut wrench moment came in. It's back, guys. What the hell does this thing want? And what are we going to do? And then at that point, I think you had 3 man-sized shaped holes in the side of the tent because we were out of that tent quick. And I remember, Dustin, you had your gun out, and it was just like that scene in Jaws where Chief Brody's at the edge of the boat and he's yelling at Quint, "Kill it, Quint, shoot it now." I'm like that with Dustin and Dustin's gun. Dustin, of course, is smart, and he's like, "I can't shoot, man. I don't know who it is, what it is,
right.
Just But after he did the glow stick experiment there, or we threw a couple glow sticks out into the woods and the one actually gets up and moves, there's enough silhouette of light. And this is what I distinctly remember, guys. We're standing there kind of almost in a row, single file between each other. And there's that thing standing behind the tree, and you can see its eyes peeking out from behind it. These 2 big freaking massive
eye shine,
kind of eye shine, but it was frightening because it was large. And the reason why we say it was large is because on the other side of that on this other memo, the other side of that meadow is a
drops off
ridge, which is about 3 or 4 feet. And this thing was line of sight to us going down just a little, which probably would have given that thing about a 7 or 8 foot tall height if we'd estimate. And I think we did estimate that years later because, the next morning came and we hightailed it out of there. But I just kind of really want Ray and Dustin to talk about their experience a little bit.
I mean, you covered pretty much most of it. In the middle of the night, though, I swore one of you was outside of the tent just kind of messing with me at one point. Because nope. I kind of looked over at Sean and I'm like, I swear to God, if Dustin doesn't stop poking me, it's going to be over. And Sean's kind of just looked over. He's like, he's right here.
Was it him?
So that was kind of my kind of revelation of, oh well, this is unfortunate.
Yeah. And it's just frightening to be out there.
How close were the tents together?
We were in one.
Oh, you were all in one tent.
Yeah, we were all in one tent.
It was one of like the family sized ones.
I got you. So your comment from Jaws was, we're going to need a bigger tent.
Could have been. I actually think I felt
got it.
a smaller tent. We were a little closer together.
Oh.
A little safety and numbers there, little human shielding if we needed to. You know, I think when we look back at it now, it's sometimes almost somewhat embarrassing, because I feel if I was in the mental space I was now, and I know what I know now, we might have had a different outcome. But in that moment, and this is where I've told all you guys at one point where my empathy really takes over for experiencers, witnesses, is that your feelings are so conflicting and confusing. You don't know what to do, and your sense of preservation kicks in. And I don't know if there's such a strong emotion or an emotional response as, self-preservation. And I it's not that we were going to knock Ray over and run, but like just being in that group together, knowing that at least, between the three of us, we were going to have to find some way to survive what was ever going to happen. And I love how, like, in my own mind, it went right to we're going to be, murdered by something. And it's probably silly now to really think about it. Right. But at least the feeling I had was really a sense of dread. So we go back into the tents after all this is happening. It calms down. It starts to rain a little bit. Here's an interesting note, though. As we're lying there, it was just a faint rain. There was no thunder or anything. There was this quick, brilliant flash of light. And I thought, because it was so localized, that it was a flash from the game camera, right? So I'm like, oh, guys, this is great. When we get, on the road tomorrow, when we talk to Dave, we'll see if there's anything that happens from that camera and they go back to collect it. Well, during the week when I talked to Dave, there was no flash on any of those cameras. And that was just really interesting to me. Could it have been lightning? I don't know. I doubt it. Just because of how the flash seemed to be so
localized, right?
I think we may have just lost Sean.
No, he's contemplating. It's a contemplation look. You have to admit that.
Somebody make a meme out of this quick.
Yeah, but I'm assuming, who else saw the flash?
That would be me as well.
Yeah, okay. Both of us did.
Yeah.
So it seemed like it was just kind of a local, close by flash, not a sky lit up thing.
Right. It definitely had a point of origin, which was definitely within the meadow.
Are we back?
Yes, you're back.
Yep. You're back.
I lost everything for a second. What'd I miss?
Nothing. Let me hang on the fence here. Hi guys. No, we were just talking about the localization of the flash. It didn't light up the sky. You didn't get that sensation that it was lightning. It was more close by, whether it a flashlight or, like you said, a flash camera type of thing.
Yeah. I thought it was a flash, and I don't know if those guys experienced it or not. I don't know. I didn't sleep. I know Ray went back to sleep for a little bit, and I think, Dustin, you were in the same mindset.
Yeah. I mean, to tag on to you about the unease, by the time I went out with you guys, I've had 7 years in the Army, plus how many years of firefighting and everything else. So high adrenaline things really didn't affect me, but that did. So that is about a bit of unease.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine so.
Hey, Henry, welcome back.
You missed it all, Henry, so thanks. Good night, everybody.
Do you have any questions, Henry, for the guys? Because I know you've heard my encounter before. Do you have any questions for them?
I wanted, just focus maybe the rest of the show with Sean falling in a gopher hole.
That
wasn't Sean. That was Baker.
Yeah.
Baker. It was Baker that fell. Well, then let's talk about Baker falling into the gopher hole.
Yeah, Baker. Well, no, Phil Bracco fell into a gopher hole. James Baker fell into a freaking divot in the earth. Okay, it wasn't a hole; it was a divot in the earth.
Was it like six people? 6 people were walking that same line, and we're like, "Hey, watch out for the hole! Hey, watch out for the hole! Hey, watch out for the hole!" Baker's the last of the line. Guess who goes in the hole?
All because he was on his cell phone instead of paying attention to what was going on. But we digress from the Baker's folly. We go to the area. So the next morning, we decided, we were just going to get the hell out of there when daybreak hit, right? Because I was done. I didn't want to be there anymore. I had actually contemplated quitting Bigfooting altogether. And I know maybe if, we didn't make it sound as scary as it is, because I'm not the world's greatest storyteller at times. And I think I just had enough. I didn't want to do this anymore. I was done. In fact, I was so worn out and drained by the experience. Ray, I think I pulled off to the side of the road and had you drive the rest of the way home.
Yeah.
I was just then I got home, called Eric, told him what happened, and I told Eric Altman I was done. I didn't want to do this anymore. I was finished with the research because I'd never felt that way before.
Well, we had a conversation on the way home that, we're doing this seriously, but at the same time, like, we have family to think about. We have, everything going on. Is it worth risking it? We kind of came at a crossroads at that point because I want to say that we kind of slowed down on Bigfooting after that for probably a good long while. I mean, we didn't camp or anything like that for probably until the following spring, I want to say.
Nope, 2 years. We didn't go anywhere for 2 years after that because it was the next Bigfoot group. Because remember, I told you the only way I'd go back is if we had a large group of people with us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was the one Bigfoot.
Jason Burke asked a interrupting question, and I apologize, but he brings up a really good question. Is there any water source close by?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah,
the areas. I mean, it's real. I think it may be close to the Allegheny National Forest too. Like, if I had to, there might be some overlap. I don't know how far away. I never looked into it, to be honest with you. I'd have to take a gander. But it's not far from the ANF at all. And I know some friends of mine, and actually I didn't know this until later when I went to an Ohio Bigfoot conference and met Brian Davis and talked to him. And I think Scott Greer, and I think I saw it in the chat there where we talked about the experience, and we had very similar situation that happened to them and happened to us at different times, of course, but some of the similarities were, just really synchronicitous. They were just very unusual how they lined up. The question was there any animal odor in the area? I didn't notice one, to be honest. I don't know if I recall a smell. Ray, did I put that in the journal at all? If there was a smell or anything? I don't know if you wrote it down. I know when it started raining that morning, when we got back to the cars kind of had this like musky-ish kind of like vibe. But we didn't get that till like we were at the cars. Yeah, that's a good thing to know. And the thing is, like, Ray will tell you, and Dustin will tell you, I'm a compulsive note taker. And like when I take notes, it's not just a little bit of notes. It's like a journal. I like to detail everything because the devil's in the details, right? But there's so much, like, even as I read through the journal with Ray and Dustin, and I was telling them guys today, like, there are some things that I just don't cognizantly remember that happened. And I'm kind of glad we have the notes to kind of keep us consistent. Anytime you tell a story, I think the story always changes just as a little bit. I think there's the embellishment of the mind. But I bring Ray and Dustin on here with me to tell you that we experienced something that was just incredible. Dustin, Ray, what your overall thoughts on our experience? I talk a lot. Again, I apologize.
Go ahead, Dustin.
No, it's an experience I've never had before, and yeah, I don't think I could ever compare to it.
No, and Dustin, we've had experiences since then with strange happenings, but nothing like that. And I always describe that as like we were it was the right place at the right time. And Ray, yourself and I, we've been out hundreds of times together.
Easily, yeah.
And nothing. We've had nights where we've just been two guys out in the woods and nothing. Bored out of our minds, just waiting for something, getting chased by the game commission, or they're trying to figure out what the hell we're doing out there. And that night was just something different. And even when we've been out there subsequent times, I think the only thing I can notate is that last time we were all out there when we were with the Seaches and the Ruperts was that flash of light again.
I remember you telling me about that. Right.
And it was, again, non-localized above us.
It was really interesting that time. It was me, you, Dustin, and I think it was Rich was with us. But we ended up going to the meadows and then following the trail out further through. And we were getting consistent replies to like knocks and things. And that was the morning of, or was it the week before?
It was the week before, because we went out there to do some preliminary work. And I remember that because Rich was supposed to be with us that weekend and he couldn't. But I remember he punched me in the back so hard when he heard that sound. I thought like his fist was going to be like a xenomorph through my chest. Like he hit me that hard because it startled him so bad. And we have had consistent vocalizations from that area. And then finally a recorder good enough to record them now that we didn't have back then. And I think when it comes to technology now, we're a little bit more prepared for some of what we'd want to encounter, except for like a FLIR or something like that. But we have enough friends that have one. We could get one of them to come along. Definitely a lot more prepared with gear.
I got another question, and it's not that it's off subject at all. And it's something that probably wouldn't be journaled, but for Dustin and Ray and Sean, when you have an experience, when you start to ramp up and you're having an experience, you don't know what's going on, and then things calm down. Do you guys just go into this, I'm not going to say a fantasy thought process, but does the fear factor raise where you're getting images of this thing just peeking in on you on the tent and you're getting a little more freaked out and your senses are getting a little heightened? And I had that experience. That's why I'm bringing it up with you guys, because that's what went through my head when I had an experience, but nothing close to what you guys experienced because we didn't see it. We just heard stuff, but we didn't see it. But my brain goes into something creepy is going to rip the tent open and look in on me, and I'm freaked. So I'm wondering if you guys had any kind of experience like that too, when things did calm down, at least after the first event happened.
No, I'd have to agree with you. The senses did all pick up to, like, listening to every little movement, every little sound, and then your mind just starts running every possible scenario, and then how to change that scenario if something does happen. So,
and what time of year?
Say again. What
time of year?
Fall.
Yeah.
Fall.
Okay.
I want to say it was around September.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The end of September. Okay. September 29th was the day, September 29th.
And I know a lot of people talk about how things get really super quiet when there's one present. I don't know if that was noted or not. I never noted it. Right?
It's just
to be honest, like your mind is going on, or your mind is trying to process things so quickly, and you're kind of going a mile a minute. Like, if there is a lull, it's that void of space is taken up by your mind just going crazy.
Okay. Good, because then I'm not feeling so freaky and alone anymore. Because that's exactly what happened with me. I'm not making this about me. I'm just curious and asking the psychological side effects when you're actually having some sort of weird experience. What goes through your mind? Because no, you're not thinking about, hey, I need to get the camera ready. I need to get the flashlight ready. I need to make sure my boots are. No. You're more freaked out about doing something that you did not expect, and you're coming up with worst case scenarios in your head.
Well, and it's funny you say that because we weren't going to stay the entire night, but we erred on the side of hurting ourselves or not being able to see in the dark as well as we could when we had light. So we chose to leave at daybreak. And as soon as daylight hit, our asses were up. We threw everything into these plastic totes that we brought in, and we hauled ass out to my van, packed up, and left that place with happy dust trails because we were ready to go. And like you said, just being there longer, the longer we were there. Until I didn't feel comfortable until the rain started. Because I figured in the rain, nothing's going to bother us. And it's going to be more bothered by the rain than it's bothered by us being there. And, I don't know if I was right or if I was just naive and just, made myself feel like it was right, but it rained for a little bit. And by the time daybreak hit, we were out. We stopped at a sheet station and got some breakfast. I called my wife and I said, I'm done. I'm coming home and I'm not doing this shit ever again. And we didn't talk on the way home. It was very quiet. I don't think we listened to the radio. I think it was just a drive home. And I'm not adding any embellishment or any to this, folks, because
but you process a lot of information in a short amount of time. I could understand that.
It was overloaded. It was absolutely overloaded. And we were just done. I was done. And it took 2 years to get back to that spot that we had our encounter. 2 years it took me to go back. And I had been out Bigfooting before that, but I would not go back to that area for some time. And I kind of feel now that was just stupid silly because we could have had a lot more evidence or research collected, but we weren't thinking about it in the moment. We had a Sony Handycam with night shot in the tent that none of us ever grabbed. None of us. And I look at that stuff now and I just want to line ourselves up and kick each other in the balls because we were so dumb. But we had this stuff and we didn't use it. So when you ask a witness, and why I try not to be condescending with a witness, well, why didn't you take a picture of it with your cell phone? Because if you're thinking about using your cell phone in that moment, kudos to you because I'm not new to this. Hello, doing this a long time. And in my worst moment in the field, I never thought about relying on any of the technology we had with us. I just wanted to go home and get out of there because I really felt, I don't want to say, and guys, I'll let you describe how you felt. I didn't feel like a good outcome was going to happen from it. I don't want to say we were going to be beaten and murdered or anything, but I just didn't feel good about it. I had a very overwhelming sense of dread about
it. For me, it wasn't until after they left or after they came and kind of had us settle down and we started on fire again. But then once we put our fire out and it was that second kind of lull, the atmosphere almost was different in the woods. So it was from a curiosity or something of that nature to almost I've got my fill and this is unwelcoming at this point.
That's a good way to put it, unwelcoming. Dustin, how about you?
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement. It was just a ton of unease and throughout the night once everything started, the domino effect from the time you and I got out of the tent to we packed up the next morning.
Yeah. We packed up quick and left, and I had no intention ever of coming back. And how long did we take to talk to each other about it?
Yeah.
While.
I would say probably like a week, because then you kind of hounded us for like writing stuff down and then talking about it. And that's really when we kind of just started comparing our notes with each other.
Jamie just made a comment that after Jamie and Jenny had their encounter, they didn't speak either on their way home. I'm sure that's a very common thing. I didn't speak with my brother a whole lot about what we experienced. And again, we didn't see anything. We just heard weird stuff. We really didn't talk about it. And maybe that's just a common psychological thing that you just need to take some time and process maybe what it was that you experienced. Was it real? Was it not real? What could be the possible explanation? And you don't want to make a fool of yourself and start talking off. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
I did talk about it publicly for a long time after that. I talked about it on the radio show, and then I didn't talk about it again until I think maybe Shannon LeGros was the next person I talked to about it publicly, about the encounter. And I've only talked about it a handful of times since then, because it's not, as a researcher investigator, my proudest moment, definitely the most frightening. But Jamie asked a good question. I'm curious if the fire remained the rest of the night. Dustin, did you put the fire back out when we got out of the tent? Because honestly, I don't remember much of the fire. I know Ray started another fire after Dave and Ryan got there, but I don't remember the fire going before they came back. Like, I don't think we started a fire until they got back to the area.
Yeah, we didn't start a fire until they got back.
Did you put the fire out when it started? Okay, because
we moved the logs again, and I think we dumped like
3 or 4 bottles of water easily.
Yeah,
like we emptied like half of our water right onto the fire.
Make sure that wouldn't happen again, and then we go and start another one a little later. Go figure. But it was something else. The fire thing, I think, is what the initial, not so much the sounds of something walking through that meadow. It was the fire that really did it for me. Like, okay, well, obviously, whatever this is, watched us put this fire out, and now it just kind of restarted this fire, and that was a lot to me. And Jamie makes another point. I'll put it up here in the window. If the meadow was an area that doesn't usually have a lot of campers or fires, it might be a draw for something with a curious nature. And Jamie, I think you hit the nail on the head, because I think as we talked, that was what we thought maybe the impetus of its visit was, when we started that initial fire and something ran through our campsite till when we went to bed. And then it kind of built the fire again, or whatever it did to start it. And then, maybe that is what it was. And I think between the three of us, I think we all did come to the consensus that it was probably our fire that drew its curiosity to us, because nothing really goes to that area besides Bigfoot researchers. It's not well known to many people. Not a lot of reason to really go out there unless you're going to hike, because it's in the middle of the, what do you call them? Gas lines, right? Where they have those large, expansive, clear cuts where they run gas lines underneath through. Like, there's no real reason to be out there unless you want a really nice hike. I mean, there's no scenic lakes anywhere, within walking distance of that area. So I don't know what else you would be out there for besides a nice camp. But I will tell you what, rattlesnakes in that area are pretty.
Yeah, Jamie brought that up too earlier. The rattlesnakes.
But when we were there in the wintertime, I think somehow somebody disturbed something and somebody stepped on a frozen rattlesnake or something. Like, it was pretty But when we were out there later, a couple years later, do you remember all the commotion that came? People were driving into our campsite and saying, "Hey, there's a snake on the road. It's making its way down to you." Like 3 people drove their trucks down. This was years later when we came back. Do you guys remember that, when they were like driving into the campsite to tell us it's like some rattlesnake alert or something? It was, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Go figure.
That aerial view up there again for everybody of that area. And for the longest time, I had a lot of animus to this place.
Mm-hmm.
And,
you know, back to your point, Sean, and again, I'm sorry for interrupting, but back to your point about the fire. In wildlife in general, that is the warning sign, is having a fire. And most wild animals, all wild animals will head the other direction because they don't know if it's a wildfire. They understand fire is dangerous. They're out. Raccoons, deer, you name it, they're out. So there's only two other things that would be left to mess with a fire. Either a bipedal creature that is not discovered or another person.
Yeah.
So it's not a bear, it's not a wolf, it's not any other. There is no curiosity to fire. It's a warning, and they're out.
No doubt. And it just had to be.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, what do you think? After all this time, it's been years since we've had this experience. Actually, in 2001, next year will be 10 years since we had that encounter. Do you think it's time to go back together?
Oh yeah, I'm ready for it.
I definitely think so. To go back, I'm a lot more comfortable now myself. Matt Arner, our good friend Matt, you guys remember Matt? He's been out there with us before. I wear snake boots out there till October. Absolutely. You have to, because there are things in the woods that really will hurt you, not intentionally, but as it's trying to protect itself, it will do it. And anybody who's interested in going along with us, just shoot us a message. We'll take you with us. Great place, like it.
Mm-hmm.
Something special.
I think the U.S. Marines might be interested. M1 tanks. No. Yeah, you don't want too big of a party going out there either. You'll have no chance of seeing anything. Jamie asked again, are there claims of Sasquatch messing with fires? I have heard stories in different types of venues, not too many, but yes, a Sasquatch messing with fire or actually starting a fire. So whether there's any truth to that, again, you
don't know, right?
I don't know.
We always approach some of this stuff with some element of skepticism, right? And I think part of why I struggled with this is because I've always been kind of skeptical myself. I think Dustin and Ray both were also on the skeptical side of this, and until you experience it, you don't know. And I don't know, guys, your final thoughts on that? Dustin, Ray, anything you want to add to it? I know I told you guys I wanted you to talk, but you know me, I just can't shut up.
For me, the experience, because I erred on the side, like you said, of the skeptic, rationalizing everything. I don't want to say it made a believer out of me, but it did open my mind to the possibility.
Because of the three of us, you kind of experienced a little bit less than what we did in some respects. Dustin?
I'd have to say I'm in agreement because I haven't been in it as long as you and Ray. And that night changed, my whole outlook on everything for it. I mean, I still question every aspect of it.
And you should.
It's one of those things that I question it, but I still can't explain exactly what I saw. I want to know more about it. And just the biggest thing to me was the logs moving back onto the fire.
Yeah, that was unexplainable.
Yeah.
Unless
that's almost more perplexing to have that experience than to actually see one.
Well, I think for me, that's what drove the whole, fear factor up a whole nother level. Dustin, we'd be remiss if we didn't thank you for your military service, by the way, buddy. I've always been appreciative of it, but sometimes that military clear sense point of view saved potentially something from having holes blown in it because of
Yeah, it's one of those things, unless you got a clear line of sight on what it is and it's actual immediate threat, you just don't shoot.
Yeah.
And don't throw the gun.
That's why he controls the firearms. I'm just there for the command.
Right.
He does that.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, buddy, thanks for your service. We appreciate it. And glad you were with us on that trip. And we've got many more adventures. And actually, that's only just one thing that's happened to us. We've been out in the woods many times together. There is one time a certain friend of mine misjudged the distance on a map and took a bunch of some of us more underfit Sasquatchers on a death march. Dustin, I'll forgive that one for you. He's not allowed to be the map anymore. Oh, let's go for this walk. It won't be too long, maybe an hour, 8 hours later, and we're all ready to die on Dustin's death march. But you know what? I always do. Somehow I always make it through these physical levels of endurance. But Matt was with us too on that trip. Just a short little walk turned into a death march. But I'm still not convinced.
It's how it is, though. That's exactly how it is.
He did not show me the map. He just gives me a cursory glance. Hey, this is what we're going to do. And if you know me enough and I trust you enough, I'm just going to go, meh, whatever. You know, like, okay, that sounds good. I'm not going to pay attention to it. Like, you can really pull a lot of shit past me, folks. If you know me and you build your trust, like, you know, if I trust you, yeah, that looks great. Go ahead, Dustin. We'll do that. That's fantastic. I'll always look at his planned courses now, mind you. I'm always going to.
But you always survive.
We always survive. That sure pushes it to the limits. But guys, thanks for coming on and joining us. I know it might have been uncomfortable and that it happened so long ago, but I'm glad you're my brothers. I'm glad you were on that with me, because we definitely have a tale for the little ones for the ages. And well, our kids are getting old enough too to go out there with Uncle Ray and Dustin, and you know, try not to serve them up as hors d'oeuvres for whatever's out there. That meadow, guys, that meadow that, well, changed our life, and we'll leave it for that. We're going to have more discussions about people's encounters. Guys, again, I'm just so happy you did take some time and spend with us. I guess my final question for you guys is, thinking back on that day, you know, on it now, how do you feel about it now? Are you glad we went out that day, or what?
Most definitely. It was a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
And I won't change that for anything.
Absolutely. Ray?
Pretty much the same as Dustin. It was enlightening. It was terrifying. But I feel like it was important for us to grow almost as researchers.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have something that scares you, then it's not actually real to you.
Oh, that's true. Guys, before you leave, you know, I want to get you all back on the program at some point. I want to go on some more adventures. I think we need it now more than ever since this COVID's letting up. And Ray, you're also a frontline healthcare worker. So thank you very much, brother, for putting yourself at risk so many people can be safe. I always like to point out and recognize my bro, who I'm very proud of, my friend, who I'm very proud of. Thank you guys both very much. You can find out more about us by going to our website. It was KeystoneBigfoot.com. I'll put it up there. You can always find us on Facebook, Sasquatch Experience. Just come right here, because Ray and Dustin are on the page. If you have questions from us, feel free to drop us a line or a question there. Vance, where can folks find you?
They can find me just outside of Chicago here. It snowed a lot today. On Facebook, Vance A. Nesbitt on Facebook. That's 2 T's on Nesbitt. Or Instagram, Vance_Nesbitt. Again, with 2 T's at NRML. And I also want to say thank you to everybody that showed up in the chat room tonight. Great conversations with everybody, and we greatly appreciate that feedback. So thank you.
That's right. Next show is going to be on the 29th. We're going to have Ryan Cavaline joining us of the Mountain Devil series. He's going to be talking about his movies, his trip out in the woods with us, as we've been out there with Ryan several times. He's a good dude. We're going to be glad to have him on the program for the first time here on Sasquatch Experience. Folks, I'm Sean the Fork Chop Forker on behalf of Vance Nesbitt, Dustin, Kinley, and Ray Hendershot. Thank you for tuning in. You can find out more about us by going to our website, SasquatchExperience.com, Sasquatch Experience on Facebook and Instagram, or Squatch EXP on Twitter. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say special thanks to our executive producers, Tom Miak and Brian Corbin, who are our Patreons and friends that support our show each and every month. And you can be a Patreon too by going to our website, patreon.com/Sasquatch Experience. I'm Sean Forker. I'm my name. You can find me everywhere on social media. Henry May, who's been in and out tonight because of internet connection issues. As he would say, you all be good or be good at it. I'm Sean Forker, folks. I don't even know my own name.
Just be good at it.
Be good at it. Keep on squatching, everybody. Good night.